Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're taking a really fascinating sociological deep dive into the complex mechanics of international dating. We're going to move way beyond those superficial stereotypes you've probably heard a million times. Instead, we are unpacking the real hidden risks and the massive psychological shifts that actually happen when completely distinct cultures collide in romance. To truly get this dynamic, you have to look at the very foundation of that initial meeting. Physical attraction is defined completely differently depending on which hemisphere's cultural lens you're looking through. There is a stark visual contrast at play here. In the Philippines, the local beauty standard leans really heavily toward fair skin and lighter complexions, literally to the point where skin whitening products just dominate pharmacy shelves. So what's the result? You have a whole population of women with darker complexions and strong indigenous features who grow up feeling largely overlooked by the guys in their hometown. But then a Western man arrives, and those exact same features make his jaw absolutely drop. It's a total inversion of what is considered beautiful.
Now, what's super interesting here is that this local stigma isn't just some passive thing, it's actively reinforced. There's a common local joke that actually mocks the aesthetic choices of foreigners, basically implying they only want the women that local men don't want. But beneath that surface-level banter, that communicates a heavily damaging message. It tells a woman that her worth is somehow dictated solely by whether local men desire her, and that is a heavy sociological weight she carries right into the relationship.
That brings us perfectly to Section 2, the self-worth value gap, and finding value where it was overlooked.
Because of those localized beauty standards we just talked about, these objectively beautiful women often enter into relationships with a completely different mindset than you might expect. They have absolutely no inflated sense of their own market value. Why? Simply because their local environment never told them they had one. The gap between her self-perception and her actual value in a Western man's eyes, well, that's where this whole story really lives. The connection usually sparks right inside this gap. She feels deeply seen, deeply validated for the very first time by someone who isn't grading her on that local scale. And that creates an incredibly powerful, genuine attachment.
Section 3. Outside transactional pressures and dealing with the money assumption.
Now, as genuine as that connection might be, it doesn't happen in a vacuum, right? Society is going to immediately project its own cynical assumptions onto the couple. People see an average-looking Western guy with a stunning Filipina and they instantly make assumptions. And it goes way beyond just being insulting. Her family might start pressuring her to extract more financial support. Her friends might whisper in her ear that she just isn't getting enough. And strangers? They'll just assume the whole relationship was bought and sold. So the crucial takeaway here is that even if the relationship isn't transactional from the inside, a massive amount of outside pressure is going to be applied. It will inevitably find its way in and can subtly start to affect her behavior if you both aren't ready for it.
Moving on to Section 4, 6 hidden relationship risks. And we're going way beyond the basic dating advice here. Let's look at how societal expectations build into deep, structural psychological risks. The first massive risk is tied to her finally discovering her true market value. In social media, it acts like a ticking time bomb here. Think about it. A woman who was previously ignored locally posts a simple video online. Suddenly, it goes globally viral. She's getting thousands of comments from strangers all over the world telling her how beautiful she is. The risk here is that social media compresses what would normally take years of lived experience and natural validation into just a couple of weeks. Her perception of her available options literally changes overnight. And hey, that validation isn't just digital either. This introduces the concept of social proof. It's that psychological phenomenon where people assume the actions of others reflect correct behavior. So the exact moment she is chosen by a foreigner, those local men who previously ignored her suddenly reassess her worth. This creates what's known as the local man problem. Suddenly, she's flooded with attention from guys who share her culture, her language, the food from her hometown. Let me tell you, navigating that kind of sudden local attention requires a rock-solid foundation, especially if your relationship is long distance.
Then, we have the shifting social circle. Her friend group will often transition as she naturally gravitates toward other women who are also dating foreigners. But here's the catch. This new expat dating community has its own norms. They have different conversations about what foreign men should be providing. So her baseline for what is normal in a relationship elevates to match her new room. The woman you met in her original context might not be the exact same person 6 months into joining this new social circle.
Which brilliantly highlights the immense danger of long-distance relationships. On one hand, you have distance vetting, WhatsApp, video calls. That gives you a highly curated, timed presentation of her absolute best self. It feels intimate for sure, but it is not complete. On the other hand, you have reality vetting. How does she handle stress? How does she treat service workers? What are her actual real-world financial habits? You simply cannot accurately vet a person's reality through a glowing screen. You only know the version she chooses to show you.
Compounding all of these risks is the family equation. There's this fascinating, almost invisible shift that happens. The moment the relationship gets serious, her family's sense of her financial worth silently recalculates. Their expectations of what you or she owe them go up the very day you appear in the picture. And this often happens without her even asking for it, or sometimes without her even realizing it's happening.
So, all of this brings us to the climax of this explainer. We've looked at the gap in self-perception, the sudden social media validation, the local pressures, but what happens when the visas are finally approved, the flights are booked, and she actually lands in your home country?
Welcome to Section 5, The Curse of the West and the Ultimate Environmental Shift. When the geographic environment changes, the entire power dynamic of the relationship flips completely upside down.
This is what's known as the curse of the West. It is the sudden, extreme repositioning of her social market value the second she relocates to a Western country. Think about the contrast. She goes from a local environment where she got near zero attention to a Western environment where she is now viewed as exotic, interesting, and highly desirable. Western men who maybe wouldn't look twice at local women are going to find her incredibly striking.
And here is the brutal reality check. In the Philippines, you, the foreigner, held most of the social and economic advantages. But in the West, those advantages either disappear or they completely reverse. If your entire relationship foundation was built solely on the fact that you were the only guy to notice her, you are going to find out very quickly that that advantage does not survive the flight home, because she will quickly realize she has options.
So how on earth do you survive this transition? That brings us to our final section, building a real foundation.
Surviving this requires severe real-world testing long before any permanent visa decisions are made. First rule, do not rush the visas after only 2 visits. The environment there will let you move as fast as you want, and nobody is going to tap you on the shoulder to say, hey, you've skipped a few steps. You have to spend ordinary, unsexy, logistically annoying time together. You need to see her when she's stressed out. You need to observe how she handles pressure, how she deals with financial stress, and you both need to understand the long-term vision way beyond that initial honeymoon phase. Putting in this hard, annoying groundwork, that is entirely your responsibility.
Ultimately, there's a brilliant quote that sums this all up. The woman isn't the danger. The shortcuts are. These women are not simply gold diggers, and they definitely aren't just trophies. They are complex individuals navigating a massive sociological shift. The danger to your relationship isn't her. The danger lies in taking shortcuts, relying on a long-distance facade, and failing to build a real foundation that can actually survive reality.
Which leaves us with a really critical question to ponder today. Did you find a hidden gem, or were you just paying attention first? And even more importantly, is your relationship built to survive when the rest of the world starts paying attention too? It really forces us to examine what is truly underneath the honeymoon phase of cross-cultural dating. I hope this structured look has given you a much clearer lens through which to view these complex dynamics. Thank you so much for joining me to unpack this, and keep learning.